Well, guys, everybody has a favorite underrated jam. And my favorite underrated jam comes from a little animated studio called Weka. And if you don't know what Weka is, it is a animation studio known for their stop motion feature films, and they made good movies. I know a bunch of people love to claim Coraline or Cubo and the Two Strings as their favorite movie of theirs, but me personally, my favorite underrated jam and my favorite movie from that studio has got to be ParaNorman. This is a movie that I had enjoyed watching ever since I was like 7.5. I would never seen it on opening night when it was in theaters. I would never throwing a temper tantrum on the way out of the theater because I want to go see it again, and because it was so goddamn good. And I'm just gonna say right now, it still holds up to this day. I just rewatched it. So now let's get into the story. Okay, so the story follows up on this boy named Norman Babcock, who is pretty much an outcast, and he gets picked on because of his ability to see and speak to the dead. And one day when his uncle dies, he passes on his duty to Norman to keep the witch into her grave, but he was too late and the dead rises, so it's up to Norman and his gang to stop the witch's curse for good. Now, this movie is the story is really smart, and the stop motion, fabulous, and so is the animation. Stop motion animation is fantastic most of the time. And when I saw this in theaters for the first time, I saw it in 3D and it looked really awesome in 3D. Even though 3D is pretty much dead now, and nobody gives a rat's ass about that. But anyway, interesting character traits. Norman is a character that we can easily relate to. So, and this movie sends a message. The movie is about loving and accepting people who are different from you in a very real sense. The horror community is all about that too. Which, this is a good message to send for kids. Which, speaking of which, I don't feel like this movie is necessarily made for kids. Sure, as a kid I enjoyed it. This movie has so much adult humor to it. Like, we got that scene where Neil is pausing his mom's aerobics DVDs just so he can stare at some woman's ass. And we get the joke where Norman is telling Courtney what his grandma said, that it's not very ladylike to hide photos of the high school quarterback with his shirt off in your underwear drawer. Which, that's probably my favorite line that this character says in the entire movie. Okay. Anyway, I couldn't think of anything wrong with this movie. Sure, is very unpopular opinion, but this is honestly my favorite Laker movie. I said this earlier in the video. Like, the story is smart. Norman is a very relatable character. And there's just so much I could say about this movie. I can talk about this movie any day of the week. It is my absolute favorite underrated gem. I absolutely adored this movie when I was 7.5, and I adore it even more as an adult. So now was pretty much wrap this review because it's getting pretty late. It may be a bit high to give a high rating for this movie, but I feel like it deserves it in my opinion. I feel like a perfect score fits this movie just right. Like, sure there's some nitpicks in there, but I'm not gonna let that bother my relationship with that movie. So anyway, so comment down below. What is your favorite underrated gem? So anyway, that is it for this review. I'll see you in the next.